Hi everyone. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about some basic, very basic hair coloring theory in order to understand hair color and how it works. If you are in the grade 11 class and you've never taken my grade 9 or my grade 10, then I recommend that you watch the properties of the hair and scalp video first in order to understand the layers of the hair before you move on to this video. Okay? So we'll see you back here once you've watched that. And now we will start with the basics in hair coloring. So we're going to start with types of color, hair color. There are many different types. One of the types is temporary hair color. And temporary color, just like the name, it doesn't last very long. It doesn't last very long at all. It completely washes off when you remove it. So the thing about temporary hair color is that it coats the outer layer of the hair, so the cuticle layer of the hair, it coats it, and then when you wash it off, it completely comes off. So a good example of temporary hair color would be mascara. So for those of us who use mascara, when you apply it, you can see that the lashes are getting thicker because the color is coating the outer layer of the hair. And then when we wash our face later on, it's gone. So that would be a great example of temporary hair color. Another example would be those spray colors that we use for Halloween or for fun. Those completely wash off once you wash it. So that would be temporary. The next category I'm going to talk about is semi-permanent and demi-permanent hair colors. Okay, these last longer than the temporary because they actually stain the cuticle and actually lift the cuticle layer slightly to get just beneath it. So it's more of a stain that lasts several washes, could last a couple of weeks depending on how often you wash your hair. So semi and demi is more of a stain. It stains the cuticle layer. Very popular, used most popularly for toners. So it would be something I would put on top of my previously lightened hair to give it a different tone. Okay, so maybe to remove some of the yellow tones, or I could make it warmer. But a semi and demi is a stain and only really just covers the cuticle. Okay, the last one we're going to talk about is permanent hair color, and that's the one that we're going to focus a lot on. So permanent hair color actually makes changes to the cortex layer. So it swells and lifts the cuticle layer, and then it goes into the cortex and makes changes there. So the natural melanin that we find, so melanin is the term that we use for the natural hair color occurring in our cortex. And so permanent hair color will go into the cortex and change the natural melanin. Okay, so swells and opens cuticle, changes happen in the cortex. Okay, so we're going to be focusing on permanent hair color today. We're going to learn how to break up every part of the hair coloring theory in its most basic form. So I'm going to give it to you in small chunks and themes. And then the next video will teach you how to take those chunks and themes and put them together in order to solve hair coloring formulas. Okay, so that's my hope for today. So we've got the types of hair color. We're focusing on permanent hair color. And so we're going to move into something called the level system. So you're going to see here, the level system is a series of numbers that represent how light or dark somebody's hair is. Okay, so a hairstylist never says, you know, my client came in with dark brown hair. We actually use a number that identifies how light or how dark that person's hair is. So we use the numbers 1 to 10. 1 represents black, 10 represents the lightest blonde. Okay, so if we have a look at my natural color, it might show up a little darker through the video, but with the right lighting and identification tools, we would say that my natural level is about a 5. So I would be in and about a medium brown color, and I would be identified as a 5 naturally. Okay, so most of us in the classroom, I'm trying to remember everybody's faces right now, but most of us in that class are about a level 5 or darker. So we are either 5, 4, 3, 2, or 1 in that class, except for one student that's sticking out to me, Leanna. And if I remember correctly, I would put Leanna somewhere in and around a 7. Okay, so she's lighter than we are. And again, myself being a 5. So I'm just identifying my natural color here because obviously this isn't natural. Okay, so we're talking about natural virgin hair. So virgin hair is how we identify hair that's never had any chemical treatment to it. So all of this hair down here, okay, has had color treatment to it. My regrowth, so my roots, has not. So this would be a virgin root. If I colored it, it would be called a virgin root application, okay? So level system, a number that identifies how light or dark someone's hair is, okay? 10 being the lightest blonde, 5 is medium brown, 1 being black. All right, we're gonna move on to the RPC chart. So remaining pigment contribution. So remaining pigment contribution, I call it RPC for short. So on this side of the scale, so we're still using the level system scale. On this side of the scale, it identifies remaining color pigment. So pigment means, you know, the color pigment that's in your hair that will be contributing to your color. So any color formula that you are designing for your client. So as we lighten the hair, so if we're starting with someone who has really dark hair, these colors will start to pull up as they lighten the hair. So if someone has level 1 hair naturally, okay, and wants to be in and around a 4, let's say they just want to lighten a few levels, what is going to be exposed as they are lightening their hair are a lot of reds and oranges. So you can see I've sectioned off between 4 and 1, and that's what's going to be identified, okay? As we lighten even further, oranges and golds and yellows will be represented, and then the lightest blonde would be like a pale yellow that gets represented in the remaining pigment contribution. So this might look a little confusing. So what I'd like to do is kind of identify what natural hair contains. So if I was naturally a blonde, this is an example of just the cortex inside. If I was naturally a blonde, I would only see yellow and gold color molecules. If I was able to open up my cortex and check out the fibers in there, I would only see yellow and gold color molecules, melanin, that reflect through the cortex and make my hair look blonde naturally. If I'm a brunette, which I am, I will contain the colors in my cortex that make brown. So what makes brown? Well, a lot of reds, blue reds, oranges, yellow, red and yellow make the orange, okay? So if I opened my cortex, I would see all of these color molecules in my cortex. So you'll notice how very different someone with naturally brown hair, what their cortex would look like from someone who has blonde hair. Blonde hair only has the yellows and golds in it, okay? And in order to make brown, if you mix reds, blue reds, oranges and yellow together, so if you had Play-Doh and mixed all of those colors together, that would make a brown, okay? This is important to know because if you're a brunette and want to be a blonde, how do you take this color molecule and make it look like this, right? We need to remove certain colors and leave behind only the yellows and golds. And the same goes the other way around. So if you're a blonde and you want to be a brunette, well, what does a brunette have that the blonde doesn't? You have to add those colors to that formula, Okay, so that's just a preview of what all of these little pieces coming together will help you with. So I'm going to move this over and we're going to talk about the color wheel. So for the artists in my class, you may have seen this before. This is a very basic color wheel. We're only representing primary colors and secondary colors. Okay. So what's important about the color wheel is that all of these colors are represented in a tube of color, a specific tube of color, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So in a color wheel, the same colors are always across from each other. So it's important that yellow is always across from violet because they are complementary and they help each other in hair coloring when we have to correct something. So for example, if your color formula ends with too much yellow in the hair and you want to remove some of the yellow, well, what's going to help you is something that is violet based. Okay, so if you've got green hair, let's say someone has mixed the wrong formula and come to the salon with green hair, adding red to it will fix it. Okay, so you can see how a color wheel can help you fix and color correct is what the term we use. Color correct your formulas. Okay, so yellow and violet are across from each other. Orange and blue are across from each other. Green and red are always across from each other. The way I sort of remember this, and you know, use your own things if this doesn't sit right with you. But yellow and violet remind me of the LA Lakers. So when I'm putting together my color wheels, I'm always like, right, the Lakers. Blue and orange, BO, terrible, but BO reminds me blue is across from orange. And green and red remind me personally of Christmas colors, and so I know they belong across from each other. Okay. Yellow, orange, and red are considered warm tones. Green, blue, and violet are considered blue tones. Sorry, cool tones. All right, so that's going to help you a little later as well. So we've talked about the level system. We've talked about remaining pigment contribution. We've talked about the level system. And now we're going to move on to peroxide. Okay, so what is peroxide? Peroxide, I'll show you one example here, is a developer. It comes in cream or liquid. Some color companies offer it as a gel as well. But peroxide is a developer that mixes with a tube of color. Okay, so you would mix the two together, and as the oxygen, as the color is exposed to the oxygen, it starts to work and oxidize, and that's how it makes it works. Separately, they don't do much, but together, so the chemistry between what's happening together is what makes it oxidize with the oxygen in the air, and that's what develops your hair color. Okay? The nice thing about this color company that we're using, Joico, is that the ratio of how much peroxide you're mixing with how much color is 1:1. Okay, so it makes the math very easy. If you're mixing 1 ounce of peroxide, you're gonna mix 1 ounce of color with it. Okay, so that's how 1:1 works. So let's talk about peroxide. I showed you one bottle, and that's the 10 volume. So it's got a 10 on it. And again, these are the very basic peroxides that I'm going to tell you. There are so many different volumes, so many different brands, but this is the most basic color information that I'm going to be giving you, and then we're going to piece it all together. So 10 volume peroxide has a job to do, and it deposits color only. So what does that mean? When you deposit something, you're dropping something off, and depositing color means that you're staying within the same level or going darker. So if I'm a level 5 and I want to remain a level 5, but instead of brown, I want to be a redhead, I would use 10 volume peroxide with the tube of red hair color because I'm staying within. I'm just going to deposit that red into my hair. Okay. Now, I'm a level 5 and I want to become a level 6. So remember, the higher the number, the lighter you're going. So that would be 1 level of lift. So 1 level lighter, we use the word lift. I would use 20 volume peroxide. So 20 volume will take my 5 and make it a 6. Okay, so if I'm a 7 and I want to be an 8, I'm going to use 20 volume. If I'm an 8 and I want to be a 9, I'm going to use 20 volume because I want one level of lift. Okay, 30 volume will lift 2 levels. So here's your 30. 30 volume will lift 2 levels. So I'm a 5. I want to be a 7. I'm going to use 30 volume with the right tubes of color, and that will give me 2 levels of lift. Okay, so peroxide will help lift your hair. Unless it's 10 volume, it will deposit. Okay, so last but not least, 40 volume peroxide will lift 3 levels. So there's my example of 40. We'll lift 3 levels. So if I'm a 5 and I want to be an 8, I'm going to use 40 volume with the appropriate tubes of color, mix with the same ratio, 1:1, and that will give me the amount of lift I need, and the right choice of tubes of color will give me the right color result. Okay, so that's peroxide. It's a developer. It's something that gets mixed with hair color at a ratio of 1:1 in order to make hair color work. Okay. The next thing we're going to talk about is series. So every color company, every professional hair color company will provide a book of swatches. So here's the Joico Vero Color Book of Swatches, and each panel represents a series. Okay, so this very first panel represents the natural series, and then we've got the gold series, we've got the red series here, and we've got the ash series here. Okay, each panel represents the series. You'll notice there are numbers, so 10, 9, 8, just like our level system. So each swatch of hair has a level and a series attached to it. The nice thing about Joico is that they make it obvious what series you're using. So their natural series is identified by the letter N. Okay, their gold series is identified by the letter G. And the gold series contains yellow and a little bit of orange in it. That's what makes that goldy color. The red series contains oranges and reds. The ash series contains greens and blues. And then they have a series called Color Corrector, which will contain the violet. All of these colors, the primary and secondary colors, are represented in these 5 basic series. Now that book I showed you had a lot more than 5 basic series, and many different color companies will have a lot more. But I'm giving you the very, very basics today to introduce hair coloring theory to you at the most basic way that I can. Okay, the last piece of information I want to give you are 2 little rules that I use in hair coloring. All right, so here are the rules. So if you are going darker, so I'm gonna see if I can show you that level system as well, so we can work with that. So if you are going darker, if you're going this way on your level system chart, okay, you're going to add the RPC, whatever's through here, and I'll give you an example in a second, because it's missing. So remember when we talked about what blonde hair looks like and what brown hair looks like in the cortex? If we don't add the right colors, you won't end up with the right color, okay? So when you're going darker, so let me give you an example. If I am naturally a level 8, color, or my client, let's say my client comes in and she is a natural level 8, which is about a medium blonde, okay? And she says to me that she wants to be a really dark brown color, let's say a level 4, okay? What I would do, for myself, I have it memorized, but what you can do is you can block off between the 8 and the 4, and you can see all of the colors that are missing in this case. So from 8 to 4, we are missing, because she only contains yellow and gold in her hair right now as a natural level 8. in order to become a 4, she is missing all of these colors in between. So we need to add those colors. We need to add oranges. We need to add red. Okay, we can add some more gold to her hair. And so that's what's really important when you're going darker, as the darker rule, is to always add those missing colors. And I will teach you how to do that in the next video. Okay, so that's the first rule, or the rule when you're going darker. When you're going lighter, okay, so you would be going in this direction. So when you're going darker, you're going in this direction, and when you're going lighter, you're going in this direction on the level system. So when you're going lighter, the rule is use or lose the RPC. Now, what does that mean? So let's reverse this formula, and let's say our client came in with a natural level 4, so a dark brown, and they want to go lighter and become an 8. We know that as she's going lighter, all of these colors now in this case, because she's going lighter, are going to expose themselves. So you're going to see a lot of reds and oranges and bright gold colors being exposed as her hair is lightening. So what you need to decide is, in the end, she wants to be a natural looking level 8, which is a medium blonde. Do we want all of these warm undertones to be shown in her final result? So do we use those colors, meaning do we leave them there? Or do we lose those colors and use that color wheel, the opposite colors of the color wheel, to cancel out the gold, the orange, and the red? So if you look again at your color wheel, what cancels these colors are the colors that are opposite it. So she's got a lot of red exposed. We're going to need some green in our formula. She's got a lot of orange exposed. We're going to need blue in our formula. And she's got a like yellow exposed, and we're going to need some violet in our formula. Okay, so all of these chunks, all of these pieces are going to come together when we are creating formulas. But it's important to know all of these chunks because you need all of these pieces in order to create and solve hair coloring formulas. Okay, a lot of the time we think that showing up to a store and choosing a box of color that has a really pretty picture of a color on it on the box, and we say, yep, that's the color we want, and we want to put that on our hair, chances are it won't look like that box color. Okay, especially those of us who have a naturally dark color. If we don't understand color theory, we will not end up with the correct color results in the end. All right, so hopefully you can maybe rewatch this again or add questions to the Google Classroom. For clarification, please ask. The next video tomorrow will work towards using this information to solve hair coloring formulas. Okay, talk soon.